Welcome to another exciting edition of Stardust and Golden. Today we're going to do a video on steering issues. Before we get into that though, I want to talk about subscriptions. I got a lot of people who have been viewing the channels, a couple of emails here and there, but we'd really like to boost up the viewership just to get the videos out there a little more. It really helps. Subscriptions don't cost you anything. Leaving a comment, it's not going to cost you anything. But please, we'd love to get all the support we can to get this out there. And we're going to do more entertaining videos too in the summertime. We're going to do a lot more sailing videos out on the water. Docking, sailing, anchoring, you name it. Plus rigging the boat for the season. But we're hoping that, you know, maybe somebody, if one person gets something out of these videos that saves them from a disaster or a mishap, we're going to be good. And that's my whole goal in doing all these tech series, is to get the information out there. It might help somebody. Anyways, today is a fail system that we're going to go over something that happened on our boat with our steering. The steering issues, I have a lot of categories for steering issues. It's one of the more common problems that happen with boats, especially sailboats, and they fall into the categories of design, manufacturer, I would say abuse, accidents, and then you have maintenance and inspection. Okay, and all those have a major effect on steering systems. I've seen steering over the past 45 years. I've seen a lot of steering systems go for a lot of different reasons. Some of them were really stupid reasons. But today we're going to go over our boat. We had a problem with ours. We have a hydraulic steering in ours. It's not, you know, a cable, because we have a center cockpit. And hydraulic steering, this was giving us some issues. We had a lot of times where we would go out sailing and our king post would actually move. I mean, it starts off at the beginning of the year, it's centered, rudder's centered, the king post is centered. And we'd go out for a couple of cruises and the king post, would now be about 180 to 190 degrees off center. We couldn't figure out why that was happening, because there was no real leaks in the system. We kept checking the ram and the pump and the lines that run from the ram and the pump. We have a very simple system. There's just a pump up in the pedestal. Wheel is directly mounted to that. Two lines with a crossover valve, so you can you know, drop the pressure, drop the force applied. And then the ram in the back to the quadrant. They were clean, they were beautiful, but again, the boat sat 25 years or 26 years, we're not sure, abandoned in a parking lot. So I did, when we first got the boat, I did do an inspection of the oil at the ram. I drained some oil out of the ram, and I did drain some out of the pump, but not a lot. Just, I basically siphoned a little bit out with a large hypodermic needle. And I couldn't see any contaminants or water, so I topped the levels off. It did not have what you would call standard fluid in it, hydraulic fluid. Somebody had replaced it with the red transmission fluid, which works, and it's just fine. But somehow we got contaminants in here, and I'm going to go over that in just a minute and show you some of the basic parts, some of the things that we found in this. All right, here's our wonderful pump. I had already taken it apart to inspect it. And this is something you really do not want to do at sea. It's got a lot of tiny parts, a lot of small O-rings, and it's something you really kind of want to do on shore, or unless you're in a dead calm for a couple days. If you have a problem with your pump out at sea, not something you really want to dig into unless you've really got some calm weather and a lot of time and materials. Okay, as you can see, I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but there's a lot of dirt in here. I don't know, you know, how it came in. It should be a very clear looking liquid with a slight reddish tint. And what we got here is just lots of dirt. This one you can really see in this half. Let me get it into some light here. But this is, it's just filthy. There's all kinds of contaminants in there. There's a lot of small passages in here. And Okay, we'll try this again. My camera keeps cutting out. I'm not sure why, but we're gonna see what we can do here. Anyways, contaminants, as you can see, there's quite a bit in there, and I don't know how it got into the oil, but it did. So now the lines are going to have to be drained, and of course the entire ram is going to have to be flushed out. It's a very interesting little piece, and I can see that there's contaminants all down through these piston holes here, the cylinders. And this just works basically from an angle plate. That's the angle plate there with the bearing on it. And as you turn the pump, you're pushing pistons down from the angle plate that just force pressure out in either direction. When you turn it left, it pushes the fluid to the left. When you push it right, it pushes fluid out to the right through this block here that has several really small O-rings and tiny ball bearings that act as valves. They're actually spring-loaded valves. Here's a larger one from the side of it. This is so fluid can't rush back in. Once you turn the wheel, it has positive pressure only in one direction. Very interesting design, but again, it's kind of failing because of maintenance. This was not really a design flaw or an abuse problem. This is strictly just, you know, from sitting 25 years it got junk, so it's not good. But we're going to clean it up and test it out as soon as I get everything cleaned up. One thing that's really important, if you do this yourself and on your boat, you have to make sure you have fluid on board and cleaning materials. Now the cleaning materials are a bit tricky when you get into something like this that has really, you know, tight clearances, especially on these pistons here. These are just polished chrome surfaces against a polished bore. When you clean those, ideally in a perfect world you would use highly compressed air. Unfortunately, out on a boat you normally don't have that, so you have to use you know, a paper product. Do not use a rag, a shop rag, or paper towels. They will leave filaments and small fragments on the product and actually can cause damage. If you use anything at all to wipe anything down or clean anything, use toilet paper. And toilet paper is really good for this, because any of the particles that are left, as soon as this thing starts in motion and you get fluid pumping through it, that just turns to pulp, liquid pulp. So whenever you're working with bearings or surfaces in a machine like this, toilet paper is your best bet, because if any fragments do fall off that toilet paper, it'll just turn to pulp instantly. So, and they use that a lot in the automotive and motorcycle and marine industry on the engines. So when you get to the main bearings and cam bearings, main bearings and cam bearings usually use Babbitt bearings. They're not roller bearings or needle bearings. And Babbitt bearings is a really soft material. It's like a lead, zinc, I forget what else was in there, tin maybe. It's kind of a what would they call that? It's one of those, the manufacturers do not like to give out the recipe to the Babbitt. Isaac Batten, who designed it in 1839, I believe, designed that material. It's always been quite a big secret as to what its actual ratios of compounds and metals were, and it's sort of like one of those things that are corporate secrets, you know. They don't like to let that out, but it is a really soft material, and whenever you're cleaning it, they recommend toilet paper because of the softness of the material. Fragments from like this, like a shop rag, that can actually pretty much destroy, little fragments from that could destroy a Babbitt bearing because of the softness of the metal. So you really want to be careful about that too. How you clean it is very important, and then how you flush it out, and then how you bleed it when it's all done. So there's a lot to it. It's not something you really want to do offshore if you can avoid it. And again, you know, if you ever have a problem like this on your own boat and you ever need information, we always leave contact information on the channel here so you can get a hold of us if need be. If it's an engine problem, mechanical, electrical, whatever, But we try to get this information out there, and I study as many accidents and problems as possible on other people's boats, just so I can get this out there, so somebody else doesn't have to live through it, you know. So let's go take a look at the other project I got going on here. This is not steering related, but somebody wanted me to film this, and he says, oh, you know, take a look at that as soon as you do your next film. Okay, so we have some new electronics here for us. They're used, they're old, because we really can't afford the new stuff, but we got an SSB. We got a brand new DNG. It's new old stock is actually what it is. It's brand new out of the box, but it's about 10 years old. Which brings me to another series. I'm going to do a video on that too, because the customer service for that company is absolutely atrocious. They also own this company, Simrad, and this is not that old either, but they don't follow up with parts anymore. So what I had to do is I had to make a wiring harness, and this was kind of a tricky thing I had to do here, because wiring harness has a very strange this is kind of like a dealer only thing. They designed this for their own cord, so you had to go back to them, but it's sort of like a D-shaped with the multiple pins. And so what I did is I sprayed that down with some Pam cooking, you know, non-stick pan stuff for baking, and then I filled it with well, I put the connector in there first, the wire connectors, then I filled it with glue, hot glue, and then I put heat shrink tubing over it. So we were able to make our own wiring harness out of that, which worked out really well, and it's nice and tight. I plugged it in, it's working. But unfortunately, this company, Simrad, and I believe they're all owned, Lowrance, Simrad, B&G, they're all owned by the same company. And they no longer have customer service. So you have to do everything on the computer. And we spent 3 hours trying to get somebody to talk to us. And when it was all said and done, we found out that they have a planned obsolescence of only about 10 years, and everything is totally obsolete after that. You cannot get parts. So I will definitely do a fame and shame video on that probably within the next week, because I've been doing a lot of calls, phone calls to different companies for different products and different services, and it's really turning. It's very sad. It's very sad. Nobody has customer service anymore. And there would be nothing like being out at sea in a really bad seaway, want to get customer service for something, and you got to sit on a computer in your cabin for 3.5 or 4 hours, running time through, you know, Satcom or Starlink or some of the other operations, which are sketchy at best when you're way offshore. And hopefully you'll get an answer to your problem, but it's unlikely. And that's got to change. And the more of us that scream about that, the more likely they are to, you know, grease the squeaky wheel. So I'm going to be down in Annapolis at the sailboat show, and I will probably hunt them down and talk to them about that, because that's just, it's really bad practice. Anyways, thanks for watching. Now, as I put this back together, I'll do a video on it, and as we put it in the boat, and I'll probably I'll do a short video on assembling it, putting it in the boat, and doing the bleeding on it, and we'll do that in one short video hopefully. And thanks for watching. Please stay tuned for more of our series, and please subscribe and give a comment if you can. Thanks. Quick couple of things before I close this video out. I wanted to mention, that I forgot to mention at the beginning of the film, the manufacturer of the pump that we just displayed and went through, it's no longer, that company's actually been sold about 5 times, now no longer exists at all. And one of the reasons I was apprehensive about pulling it apart, I tried to call several shops that dealt strictly in hydraulics, and nobody wanted to touch a steering pump or a sailboat. I couldn't find anybody except for a company up in Michigan, I believe they were. So getting parts for some of this stuff is very, very, very hard to do. And if you're in a situation where you have any kind of an old part like this, where you need to find bearings, seals, this thing I've got to replace the seals for, O-rings. There are rubber companies and bearing distribution companies you can call that sell seals, and all you need really is dimensions or numbers. And most seals, most rubber seals, have the numbers usually. They're kind of formed right into it, you know, or stamped into them. Bearings usually have the numbers stamped right into them. And like this one here, this is a piece bearing. The races actually come off the bearing race. But this one has its own manufacturer symbol on it and the number. So you can actually call up a bearing company and say, hey, you know, I need a 5111 by NTN made. This bearing, NTN's a pretty big, huge operation for bearings. And there's quite a bit of them out there. Timken's a huge one too. Timken bearings are usually very pricey though, and if you're sailing on a micro budget, yeah, that can be tough. But yeah, everything's out there. You just got to search for it. And if you, some of the companies won't sell unless you have a company or a corporation. So if you, again, you know, if you're ever sailing in the Great Lakes or someplace in or the East Coast of the USA, and you need a bearing or seal and you can't get it, and you don't want to file and set up a dummy corporation just so you can order products for your boat, you could easily write to us and we can get something out for you. Stacy and I, you know, mail you something. Because I can get a hold of this stuff very easily, and I work in the industry, so I have lots of assets, if you will, for getting this kind of stuff. Another thing I wanted to explain was when I explained the wiring harness, one of the things that's really good, and I suggest everybody keep them on the boat if they're going to do anything electrical. If you do a lot of electrical work on your boat, keep yourself a lot of not only wire, solder and a soldering gun, but it's a good idea to have spade connectors or tube connectors or any kind of connectors. Now, you also need a set of tools for pulling those. I have a set like this. These are really great to have on a boat. And these are for pulling connectors apart. So if you ever have a wiring connector that you need to pull apart, and I'll give you an example right now. But these things are worth their weight in gold offshore when you got to make a harness or something for something that goes bad. And, a lot of wiring goes bad on boats, especially in the saltwater stuff, just deteriorates. So this is not something that you do often, but it is something that sometimes has to be done. And you really want to be careful with your connectors too, because they'll start melting down if they have too much of a voltage loss. You know, if you have as much as a volt of a voltage loss across a connection, and there's that much resistance in it, it could heat up and melt down. So you want to be really careful. You should ideally never have more than, on a sailboat offshore, I would suggest 0.2 of a volt or 1/10 of a volt. I like to keep mine like 1/10 of a volt, my connections. If I got less than that, I mean more than that, if I have like 0.5 of a volt loss over one connection, that's way too much. I will cut that wire apart or that connector apart and redo it, because I want to see less than 0.1. I want, you know, less than 1/10 of a volt. So, but these are what I'm talking about here. I'll put the camera down so we can see it. But this is a wire connector. As you can see, it's got, this was a 6-pin. I took 2 out of it already. But all you do is you take, because these are in with a, if you look at this, let's see if we can look at that really closely. It's got a little tab right there. And that little tab is what holds this in. It's kind of like spring loaded, okay? You always want to make sure that these are really clean too. Sandpaper, brass wool. Don't use steel wool on a boat. It just leaves rust stains everywhere. But these just, you kind of just, you poke them in here, and you can pull those right out. And sometimes it's easier said than done. That's a small one for this one. And these two will come out. And I think the tool I have in my hand is probably for something smaller like this. But yeah, you can just pull these out, and you could resolder those into another connector. And that's how I made the connector for that Simrad AIS system. The AIS, I just cut 2 of those out there. I had the barrel type, which took a tool that looks a little bit like that. And they were micro barrels, so it wasn't part of this kit. It was part of another kit for small electronics. But if you need to make your own harnesses at sea, it's good to have some of this stuff aboard. I keep a little box with all kinds of spare parts just like that most people would throw away. But I cut it out of stuff I find, you know, old stereos, anything electronic that I find in the rubbish, I cut the parts out of, because I do a lot of my own electronic work here. This is something that I made years ago. It was a product that I was manufacturing This was the prototype, the original prototype for the product. And I just take all the parts back out of here and I keep them on the boat, you know, watertight container. So again, thank you again for watching. I'll leave the information or contact information, so you know, if you want to get a hold of us for any, you know, advice on this stuff, or you want to see something else done on our videos, please let us know. You know, if there's a topic, or if you had a major problem with your boat and you'd like to see us discuss that, we would really love to talk to you. I'd love to collect as much information on disasters as absolutely possible. Breakdowns, you know, minor issues with electrical or plumbing, or, you know, the physical characteristics of the boat, even rigging. You know, just give us a call. Our number's up there, our email, and our physical address. So thank you again for watching. Please subscribe. It doesn't cost you a thing. It helps us grow, so we can get more of these videos out there. I want to get some more software and stuff for editing these and making better videos and better cameras. I don't want to invest too much unless, you know, there's a viewership. But thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. And I'll get another video out in the next few days, or maybe this week, end of this week. Thank you.